Christmas Eve in Minnesota is overshadowed by a political crisis, casting a long shadow over what should be a season of celebration and togetherness. The state is rocked by a sprawling fraud investigation, shaking the very foundations of Minnesota's government, and putting Governor Tim Walz directly in the spotlight as questions mount about oversight and accountability. Federal prosecutors allege massive corruption across multiple social safety net programs, with billions in taxpayer dollars for housing and autism services potentially stolen, money meant for the state's most vulnerable residents. This isn't about minor errors or isolated incidents. Officials describe a widespread, highly organized fraud operation that's been running for years, all under the state's watchful eye. As the probe widens and more details emerge, the political fallout intensifies, with Walz forced to defend his record while scrambling to contain the growing crisis and reassure the public. The scandal has created a tense, almost electric atmosphere at the Capitol, with every new revelation fueling public outrage and deepening mistrust in state leadership. Walz now faces a dual challenge: taking decisive action to stop the fraud and restore confidence, while also managing the political storm that threatens to engulf his administration. Meanwhile, his political rivals are seizing the moment, eager to exploit the scandal and turn public frustration into political advantage as the stakes continue to rise. With an election looming on the horizon, the investigation now dominates state politics, threatening to define Walz's legacy and shape the outcome of the upcoming vote. Critics argue that his administration is buckling under the weight of the findings, struggling to maintain control as the scandal grows. How Governor Walz responds in these critical moments will determine not only his political future, but also the public's trust in Minnesota's government for years to come. On December 18, 2025, Assistant U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson stood before a packed press conference to announce sweeping federal indictments tied to a massive fraud scheme within Minnesota's Housing Stabilization Services and Autism Service Center programs. The announcement sent shockwaves through the state, as Thompson detailed the scope and seriousness of the alleged crimes. Thompson revealed that 14 high-risk Medicaid programs, which have collectively billed an astonishing $18 billion since 2018, are now under intense federal investigation. These programs, meant to serve Minnesota's most vulnerable residents, are now at the center of one of the largest fraud probes in state history. He suggested that as much as half, over $9 billion, could be fraudulent, a figure that dwarfs any previous state scandal and has left both officials and citizens reeling. The sheer scale of the alleged fraud is unprecedented. The fraud, Thompson said, is neither small nor isolated, but systemic and deeply rooted in the state's bureaucracy. It has infiltrated multiple layers of government, making detection and prevention especially challenging. Indictments are exposing a complex web of deceit, implicating numerous individuals and organizations. The investigation has already led to several arrests, with more expected as authorities dig deeper. Prosecutors allege a systemic failure of oversight, with fraudulent actors exploiting payment systems for years. Lax controls and inadequate monitoring allowed the scheme to flourish largely undetected. The scale of the investigation has transformed Minnesota's political landscape overnight, sparking urgent debates and calls for reform across party lines. The $9 billion figure, whether accurate or not, has become a symbol of the crisis and a rallying point for public outrage. Citizens are demanding accountability and swift action from their leaders. The central question, how did this happen, and who is responsible, now dominates headlines and public discourse, fueling a growing sense of urgency. Governor Walz and his administration are now under intense scrutiny to provide answers, as the public and media demand transparency and accountability in the wake of this unprecedented scandal. Governor Walz didn't hide from the allegations. The day after the federal announcement, he addressed Minnesotans directly. "This was on my watch. I am accountable for this, and I will fix it," Walz declared, accepting responsibility for the crisis. His message was clear. He would lead the effort to root out corruption, reform oversight, and prevent future fraud. Walz's public acceptance of blame is a high-stakes move, projecting leadership, but also tying him to the scandal. He's betting that voters will respect his resolve to fix the problem more than they'll punish him for the failure. The public now expects real action reforms, safeguards, and justice for those who stole public funds. Walz's legacy will be defined by what he does next, not just what he says. The pressure is on to deliver meaningful change at the Department of Human Services and beyond. Minnesotans are watching to see if he can restore trust in their government. While Walz accepted responsibility for fraud, he strongly disputed the $9 billion figure cited by federal prosecutors. The governor's team argues the number is exaggerated and politically motivated, designed to grab headlines. Walz claims the Justice Department, under the Trump administration, is weaponizing the investigation against him. State Medicaid Director John Connolly supports Walz, saying internal probes found fraud in the tens of millions, not billions. Connolly challenged federal prosecutors to provide evidence for their claims, demanding transparency. The core dispute: is this a manageable problem or a catastrophic collapse? If Walz is right, the federal estimate is reckless. If not, his administration may be downplaying the crisis. The public is caught between dueling narratives, unsure whom to trust. Ultimately, control of the story and the political advantage will go to whoever convinces Minnesotans their version is true. The investigation is further complicated by a fight over whistleblower tips. The House Committee on Fraud Prevention, led by Republican Kristen Robbins, is sending tips only to federal authorities and the legislative auditor, not state law enforcement. Robbins claims whistleblowers fear retaliation from state agencies under Walz, so she's protecting them by bypassing state channels. Walz's administration calls this outrageous, accusing Republicans of obstructing the state's investigation for political gain. The governor warns that withholding evidence could make the committee part of the investigation itself. This standoff has created two parallel investigations, state and federal, each suspicious of the other. The lack of cooperation slows progress and deepens public mistrust. Instead of unity, partisan divisions threaten to derail efforts to uncover the truth. The scandal has ignited a fierce partisan battle. Democrats accuse Republicans, especially Robbins, of withholding evidence for political gain and undermining the fraud committee's purpose. They argue the GOP is using the crisis to damage Walz ahead of the election, not to stop fraud. Republicans counter that state agencies can't be trusted to police themselves, pointing to the scale of alleged fraud as proof. Robbins insists only an independent investigation can restore trust. The result: a toxic environment where both sides claim to champion accountability while accusing the other of playing politics. The public is left wondering if anyone is truly focused on recovering stolen money and holding the guilty accountable. The finger-pointing only deepens the crisis of confidence in Minnesota's government. This investigation stems from an earlier federal case, the Feeding Our Future scandal, led by Joe Thompson. That case exposed hundreds of millions in fraud in a child nutrition program during the pandemic. Prosecutors found some defendants also held contracts with Minnesota for other services, prompting a broader probe. This led investigators to scrutinize housing and autism service providers, expanding the inquiry to multiple Medicaid programs. In August 2025, the Department of Human Services shut down the Housing Stabilization Services program, citing credible fraud allegations. Walz's stance has shifted. Last July, he agreed fraud could exceed $1 billion, but now disputes the $9 billion figure. The history shows fraud and weak oversight have been growing concerns for years. The current crisis is the culmination of long-standing vulnerabilities in Minnesota's social programs. The fraud scandal now dominates Minnesota's political landscape as Governor Walz seeks a third term. What began as a local investigation has spiraled into a defining issue, overshadowing nearly every other topic in the race. The governor's campaign, once focused on progress and stability, now finds itself on the defensive, forced to answer tough questions at every turn. For Republicans, it's a potent campaign weapon, evidence, they say, of government incompetence and failed leadership. Their message is clear: the scandal is proof that Minnesota needs a change at the top. Attack ads flood the airwaves and rallies grow louder as the opposition seizes the moment to rally their base and sway undecided voters. The controversy has drawn national attention, with the Trump administration seizing on the case to attack Walz. News outlets across the country highlight Minnesota's troubles, turning the state into a symbol of broader debates about government oversight and accountability. Walz claims the investigation is being weaponized to undermine social programs and his administration. He argues that political opponents are distorting facts, using the scandal as a pretext to dismantle support systems for those in need, and insists that his administration is committed to transparency and reform. the stakes are high, not just Walz's career, but public trust in the social safety net itself. For many Minnesotans, the outcome will determine whether essential services remain available to families struggling to get by, or if fear and suspicion will erode the programs they rely on. Critics argue that exaggerating the fraud is a strategy to justify cutting or eliminating vital programs. They warn that the real victims could be the state's most vulnerable, who depend on these services for food, housing, and basic security. The debate is now ideological, with the future of Minnesota's social services hanging in the balance. Both sides accuse each other of playing politics, deepening divisions and making compromise seem increasingly out of reach. As 2025 ends, the state faces a crisis of trust, billions allegedly stolen, and leaders mired in partisan conflict. The sense of uncertainty grows, as citizens wonder who will be held accountable and what reforms, if any, will follow. The coming months will test whether Walz can restore integrity, or if voters will demand a new direction. Every handshake, every campaign stop, and every vote cast will shape the state's future for years to come. The future of Minnesota's government and its most vulnerable residents is on the line. As the election approaches, the choices made now will echo far beyond the ballot box, affecting generations to come.